a line group set up so that the people in the class can communicate with each other. But I thought in the beginning, some of you did tell me that they did not want to be in a line group. And that's why I agreed to send email to you when every week I do that on Monday so that I would give you all the same handout that I was sending to Jerry and to be posted on the line group of King On. So I thought that would be good enough if you want to communicate with some of the class members, you can go on the King Online group so we can all see it. Do you have the uh, intention to have a different line group for ourselves? Please let me know. We can talk about this. But it was my impression that some of you did not want to be in the line group. And I myself too, I just spent half of my day deleting line group postings that I did not care to read. So that is such a big job every day, a waste of time. But if it makes sense for us to communicate with each other, that's okay too. Yeah. But at any time you want to send anything to me by email so that no one else can see, that's fine. Yeah. It is only when you want others to see that we're going to consider the line group. Okay, so let's start with today's topics. I chose this song, which is "We Are the World," which was very moving, and at that time, 1985, it was very, very popular, and it was uh, done by the USA for Africa, which is a charity group set up just for that purpose. However, it remained open, active even now. Okay. And to match this feeling of the togetherness of human being, to have sympathy on others, I chose this Du Fu's poem, which is "毛无为秋风所破歌." That is a pretty long title, which means that his thatched roof house or hut was damaged by wind and rainstorm. Uh, Du Fu went through a lot of trouble and hardship in his life, and this is one of those times. And when he encountered such difficulty, what's on his mind most is there are so many others like him that we need to help each other. The other topics are climate zones, caliphate, Lord Byron, and about the background of this song, "We Are the World." And I am giving you this recommendation for a video. Okay. This, I did not send this to you because I just came up with this one. And well, you don't have to copy all the letters in that link. You just go to YouTube and search for Corey ten Boom, and you will be able to find all these videos. And you don't have to watch all of them. It is just a story, a real life story of a Gentile. When you say Gentile, you mean uh, you're not Jew, okay? 就是不是犹太人的人，我一般来说叫做 Gentile, Gentile, but most of the time they're talking about white people instead of colored. The one that I came across was yesterday morning. I was sitting in the waiting room for my car to be maintained at the dealer, and I happened to come across this, which is the first one Corrie ten Boom, A Faith Undefeated. It is a devout Christian. When she was probably 40 to 50 years old, she was a spinster. Let me write some of these words here. I just mentioned the Gentile. That means people who are not Jews, okay? And I came across this, I was going to say spinster. A spinster is what we call a 老小姐, a woman who was not married and past his age for looking for a husband, okay? So Corrie ten Boom was a Dutch woman who was engaged to be married when her fiancé, okay, fiancé. On this E, there should be an accent on it. So you would pronounce it fiancé instead of fiance, which it is a French word, 就是未婚夫的意思, her fiancé came to her home, maybe also to visit her family, and he brought with him his new fiancé. That's why Corrie ten Boom was never married, because the fiancé changed his mind. So she was a devout Christian, and she was very kind to everyone. And during the time of Nazi occupation, you know that Nazi Germany occupied, Poland and the Netherlands and Belgium and France. Yeah. I think it was on September 1st of 1939. Is that right? I suppose so. Yeah. Okay. Germany invaded Poland, and very, very quickly, Germany occupied Poland and turned around and occupied the Netherlands, Belgium, and France. So Corrie ten Boom, who lived in the Netherlands, became one of the residents being occupied by German. So, and the German immediately, the German people, Germany immediately started to arrest Jews to be patched to concentration camps. Well, maybe not on the first day, but very quickly. And the Corrie ten Boom, who lived in Haarlem, Haarlem, she started to rescue these Jewish people, to hide them and to feed them and to support them and do a lot of things. So did a lot of her families. And they did that for years, several years, until one of the neighbors betrayed them, and they were arrested by Nazi German soldiers, and they were sent to concentration camp. And within 10 days, Corrie's father died. And then her sister, who did not die immediately, but eventually died in the concentration camp of starvation. Now, she did not have enough to eat and was sick and tired and so on. So she died. But quite miraculously, she was released from the camp and was able to eventually get home. And pretty soon the war was over. The fact that she was released from the concentration camp was quite a miracle. Very few people had such good luck, but of course she suffered a lot. Then she eventually came to America. She wanted to preach to people to have the Christian heart. People should risk their lives if need be, and to save other human beings who are suffering. And eventually she was in touch with Billy Graham's wife, the preacher who's very famous, first on radio and later on TV. We say Billy Graham 叫做格拉汉牧师哈。Billy Graham's wife, Ruth, eventually got in touch with her and wanted her to give talks to people, to Christians or to potential Christian converts. We say, if you're not a Christian and eventually you became a Christian, you convert to Christianity. Of course, it can go in many directions. You could be you could believe in Islam and convert to Christianity, or vice versa. You could be a Christian who converted to Islamism. So this word is to 改宗, 就是说 you change your religious belief to a different one, whether one of them could be you're not believing any religion. So you could convert into a believer, or you could convert out of a belief, and so on. So this is a word that can be used in many directions. So eventually, Mrs. Graham helped her to write a book which became a bestseller. This book is called here, The Hiding Place. It's about her story of hiding Jews inside her own home. And it was later made into a movie. Here I say it's a movie. So if you're interested, this is a part I saw yesterday on YouTube. It is a kind of a documentary. It's about an hour long. It's about her life story. And then if you have more time, you can watch the real movie, which almost is a 2.5 hour long. It's called The Hiding Place. All these things you can search YouTube and find. And then there is a Corrie ten Boom testimony. It's she tells her story herself. And it's got 3 very long episodes, which I did not see. So you can watch any or all of them. Of course, if you did not have time to any of them, that's okay. This is her story, how she helped the Jews. And this is a place of her home. And this picture was taken by me on October 6th of 2014. My sister Annie and her husband and I, the 3 of us, went on a trip. I don't remember whether it's probably more than 2 weeks, but maybe less than 3 weeks. And at one time we stayed in Harlem in an Airbnb apartment, and we could just walk across the canal. Well, there are many, many fancy bridges on all those canals. And we just reached the main square where there's a huge, huge, huge church. And Corrie ten Boom's family home. In this picture, it was a block away from that square. And I went there on my last day in Harlem and in Holland, in the Netherlands. And I visited this a museum, which is free, open to all the people. And I was there, and we had this tour guide. This one is a tour guide, or you can say she is a docent. There are many people who work as volunteers at either a botanical garden or a museum or any such public places, they act as tour guides, and they are called docents. So this lady was there to tell us the story and show us maybe a group of 10 people. Uh, we went upstairs and downstairs and so on. And this is where the wall was punctured to show a hiding place. That's where Corey used to hide the Jews that to keep them from being arrested by you know, by the Nazi soldiers. And this is a story very similar to Anne Frank's story. You know, Anne Frank is a 13-year-old Jewish girl, also in the Netherlands. She and her family were hiding in the attics of a friend who put them there and fed them and protected them. And eventually they were betrayed also by a neighbor and were arrested by the Nazi soldiers and sent to, I believe, Auschwitz. So this is a similar story, except that she got out alive eventually and lived to tell the story. But Anne Frank is, of course, very much more famous because she wrote a diary that became a bestseller. So millions of people were able to read her own testimony. And Corey similarly wrote a book after the fact. So if you're interested, yeah, I'm quite interested in lots of stories about the Jew, especially the Holocaust. Let me spell this word for you. Holocaust. I hope I got it right. Okay, I think that's right. Okay. Then we have all these, the list of the vocabulary that we're going to go through today. But before that, I had a few more remarks to make. One is that last time I talked about this first bullet, you see, Nelson Eddy was invited to sing at the third inauguration of US President Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1941. This is the same sentence last time I showed you in one of the slides. And Nelson Eddy was the person who sang the song featured last week in the class, which was Believe Me in All Those Endearing Young Charms. So I said, oh, Nelson Eddy sings at the third inauguration of FDR. And before that day, I always thought FDR was elected president of the United States 3 times. So I was quite confused about this sentence and made some other remarks that were not accurate. Then later I realized, I checked and found out Franklin D. Roosevelt, we call him FDR. FDR and the JFK are the 2 very famous people. We just call them by the 3 initials. So when you hear about FDR, you know it is, we call 小罗斯福, the younger Roosevelt who was president of the United States. Average American would refer to him as FDR. He was elected 4 times, not 3 times. That caused me to have that confusion. So he was elected the 3rd time in 1941. And this, when he was elected in 1940, and he became president in the very early parts of the following year, which is 1941. And that's when Nelson Eddy sang the song during his 3rd inauguration. And FDR died after he was elected the 4th time. He became president the fourth time in 1945, but he died in April. So it was maybe 2-3 months. He was it was in his fourth term that he died. So many people think that he, being in such poor health, dying within a few months, should know better not to run for president. And another thing I was wrong was that FDR became the president more than twice, was elected more than twice, which is illegal. That was wrong. It was not illegal. It was legal for a US president to be elected more than 2 times in the lifetime. However, nobody before FDR did that. Everyone decided not to run for the fourth time because George Washington was an example. He was elected twice to be president, and when it's time for George Washington to run for the president for the third time, he decided that he should be a good example. And if a person is a president for more than 2 times, it, as they say, power corrupts. This is a very famous saying. It is power. Power corrupts. It's a very simple, short, and forceful statement. Power corrupts. If you're in power, you enjoy the power too much, then your character, your personality, your integrity will suffer because power would corrupt you. That's why George Washington decided not to run for the third time. And every president after him also followed his example and did not run for the third time. But it's not illegal. There was no law that says nobody can be elected as president for more than 2 times. So it was not illegal for FDR to run for the president for the third time and for the fourth time. However, after that, people decided they should put that into law to forbid anyone to run for president for more than 2 times, to put a term limit on presidency. This is the word, term limit. Oops, I meant to do this. Okay. Term limit means you can have, there is a limit on how many terms you can do a job. Some people think senators and US representatives should also have term limits, but there isn't such a law yet. Okay. We know that power corrupts. We can see clearly in the past 4 years how a new president became more and more corrupt every day. But of course, there are other people having more integrity and the moral standard than him. But more or less, somebody will be corrupted. For example, when Obama was oh my God, what is that? Must be an Amber Alert. Yeah, okay, I bet many of you will receive this. This is called an Amber Alert. Amber is a girl who was kidnapped. Let me put this here. Amber. Alert. She was kidnapped by some bad guys and transported in a car somewhere else. I don't know what happened eventually. Probably the bad guy was caught and she was dead, or maybe not. I cannot swear to it. However, because of this incident, people decided that it is crucial to look for a kidnapper as soon as possible when the kidnapping happened. Let me put down this word, kidnap. Kidnap. Okay. Kidnap is a portmanteau of two words. One side is kid, that means a child, and nap is a verb that means to snatch somebody. So kidnap is what's a Chinese word? 绑票哈，或者说绑架 ，yeah， 绑架或者绑票。绑票就是说你绑架了一个人 ，and you want a ransom 哈，ransom 这个就是赎金的钱哈，这个就是票。你绑了一个人，你要他的 ，you ask a family to pay you a ransom 哈，这个叫做 ransom。So, people realize that when a child is kidnapped, it is very important to let everybody know to help to catch the bad guy. So they set up this system called Amber Alert. That is, as soon as a child was kidnapped, the police would issue an Amber Alert and everybody's cell phone would ring. And if you look at it, it would have a message that you should look for a certain kind of car on the highway or in your neighborhood. The car, the make of the car, the color, and so on, so that you look at it, even if you know nothing about this child or whatever, you would be alerted to watch out for this car. And as soon as somebody who did not even know anything better receive this message, it helps a great deal to catch this kidnapper. Okay, so next time when your phone rings, you will know it's probably an Amber Alert most of the time. Of course, it can ring for some other emergencies, but Amber Alert is the most often reason for such an incident. And another thing to mention is that to catch this kidnapper. Pardon me? Okay. I was going to say that in this country, when a kidnapping happened, of course, it can be like Elizabeth Smart or something like, I don't remember too many. There were bad guys out there who would kidnap a child, but almost always, maybe 80% of the time, it was one of the relative that kidnapped the child. It's usually parents were divorced and the one child that kidnapped the child and took the child across state lines so that he could keep that child or whatever thing. Yeah, I'm not saying that this is wrong or not. I'm just making a comment that that is the most common reason for child kidnapping. Okay, so we're talking about George Washington and the term limit. So eventually, FDR died in April of 1945. And in March of 1947, 1947, United Congress approved an amendment, 22nd Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, 就是宪法修正案第22条, which says nobody can run for president more than 2 times. It was approved in March, and then it took a little less than 3 years to be ratified. This word is called ratified. So this law was approved, but according to the law, you cannot consider a law approved by the Congress to be the real law unless it was ratified by a portion of the states. For example, at that time, there were 48 states. Hawaii and Alaska were not yet states. Of the 48 states, there must be at least 36 of them who ratify this law in order for this amendment to become the law. So that's the process of amendment to Constitution. So this became law in 1951. So ever since that, if a person who wanted to run for president for the third time, the law is against him. He cannot do that anymore because of this amendment. Before that, FDR could do that twice, but not after 1951. And they also considered a person could be become a president and not elected. For example, Lyndon B. Johnson. Johnson was not elected a president. However, when Kennedy or JFK was assassinated, Johnson became the president. So he could possibly be elected to 2 more terms if he wanted to. Actually, I think he did or not. 64. So he became president in 64. I mean, elected in 64. JFK was assassinated in 63. So Johnson became president immediately, almost on the same day, or on the flight from Austin back to DC. He swore in as president, but there was only one year left in that term. So by this law, he could still be elected twice. So he would be one of the few people who would be president for more than 2 terms because of that little bit in front. However, he decided not to run the second time, so he did not become the very landmark person, okay? And another one is Gerald Ford. He was not elected president. He was President Nixon's vice president after Spiro Agnew was impeached or removed. Spiro Agnew was the vice president, but he committed corruption during his time in Baltimore. So he was removed and Gerald Ford became the president. However, he lost the race to Ronald Reagan, and Reagan became president in 1980. So we've never witnessed anyone who was United States president for more than 2 terms, according to the entire story I just told you. Okay. The next thing before vocabulary is 昭明文选. Last time when I told you about 文选, which is also called the 昭明文选because Crown Prince 昭明太子 was in charge of doing this literary anthology. Here's the word anthology we encountered sometime earlier. And at that time, yesterday, I was talking about 昭明太子, and I couldn't remember his name, and his name was Xiaotong. His father was Xiaoyan. Of course, his father was the emperor, and he was 昭明太子. So every time we talk about him, we say Crown Prince 昭明. Why is he a crown prince and never the emperor? Because he was never the emperor, okay? Here on this slide, you know, 昭明文选 was one of the greatest thing that happened in Chinese literature. That's because he and a group of people diligently compiled this collection of brilliant literary works before them. from warring states, which is 战国, all the way to Liang Dynasty, which is in northern and north and south dynasties, 南北朝. So they selected articles and pieces from within this 800 years, and in the process preserved many that could have been lost. And it also showed the way for scholars or students to study, because they are the best of the best. When we say best of the best, we could say cream of the crop. If you use the original French word, it would be crème de la crème, 就是 cream of the cream. 就是 when you have milk, it has a lot of butter in the milk within it. So if you keep beating it, the cream would float to the top and become butter, which you could harvest. You can scrape off the butter, which is the best part of the milk. That's why the cream is called the best part of the milk. So then we go back to say what these are. Okay. Okay, excluding, here's a part about excluding. When Zhao Mingtaizi was working on this huge anthology, what did they choose? They did not choose anything from these two categories. One is the Chinese classics, which is Jing, which means 是那叫什么东西？五经是哪五经哈？ There's no 乐经, so there's no music. There's no canon of music. But the other five, we have 诗, 书, 易, 礼, 春秋. Okay, these are the five classics, because everybody has been studying like crazy all their lives. So Zhao Mingtaizi did not choose anything from the five canons. Canons is CANON. A canon is a classic work that is so high above that we just bow in front of it. 这个叫做经书. And in China, we have five canons because we lost the sixth one. Okay, and they also did not choose anything from Zi. And Zi is about here we say philosophical text. That is all the people, the philosophers in the 春秋, which is the spring and autumn. 春秋, spring and autumn periods. I guess that's what they call periods. So 春秋时代, there were tons of philosophers. For example, 老子, 庄子, 荀子, 列子, 韩非子, lots of 子. All these 子书, they are philosophical texts written by philosophers. And people also were studying like crazy. So Zhao Mingtaizi decided not to choose anything from the classics or from the philosophical text. So what he chose are histories and essays and the poems, mainly those things. Come in Qing Dynasty, we had 四库全书. 四库全书 is a huge collection of tons of thousands of books in history. Of course, it's a lot later than Zhao Mingtaizi, so it's nearly 15 or 1400 years later. So there's a much bigger collection, and it is a government endeavor, and it's divided into four parts, and that's why it's called 四库全书. And the four parts are 经, 史, 子, 集. 经 is the classics, 史 is histories, and 子 is philosophy, And the Ji is a personal anthologies, may not even be personal, it's just anthologies, but it's about one or several writers, so it's an anthology. Most of them were individual writers of collection, but there are also other bigger anthologies. So this is what 四库全书 means and what 经史子集 means. So for 昭明文选, they chose only articles or poems from his histories. So there are a lot of, Han Shu, Shi Ji, Han Shu, things like that, and the collections. So you have, for example, Li Bai Shi Ji or Du Fu Shi Ji or many hundreds of others. Here I want to talk a little bit about Zhao Ming Taizi. How come he's not the emperor? His father became the emperor by usurping the previous dynasty, the usurp. Okay, so he was an official in a previous dynasty's court, and he decided to become the emperor himself. Of course, in the process, there was killing and military actions. So Xiaotong is a literary person, as we know. He did this anthology, so he's not very militaristic, and he did not get his father's favor. His father decided not to let him be the crown prince, but to put his Xiaotong's son, so the father's grandson, as the crown prince. He would be a Huang Tai Sun. However, he did not do it because he thought that's kind of embarrassing for the father who was his son, So he did not do it. But he really did not like this son, who is Xiaotong. So he eventually put Xiaotong's younger brother as crown prince. And Xiaotong became not the crown prince, but all his sons would also become princes. Then Xiaotong died, look at his years. He was born in 501 and died in 531. So he died at age 30 because he fell into the water, into the lake during a boating accident. And he was injured, but not drowned, not dead, but he died a few days later due to the injury and other sufferings. So he was a young person who achieved a great literary achievement, but he was, for most part of his life, the crown prince, but died not a crown prince. So he died before his father. So let us start with the vocabulary. The first word is Judaism, which when you have ISM at the ending, it means a religion or a philosophy or something, or a kind of study. And Judaism is a religion that came from the Jewish people. And this Star of David represents Judaism. That's their symbol with two triangles. One is inverted, 就是它反过来, that it represents Judaism. So this is a ethnic type of religion. People who believe in this religion are almost all people of a certain ethnic group, which is the Jewish people. And it's classified as Abrahamic because it was, you can say it was founded by Abraham, even though it came to this world for more than just about 20,000 I'm sorry, 2000, good grief, yeah, 20,000 years, I suppose. No, 18, no. 18th century, that would be 1800. Okay, that's before Christ. Okay, so it's close to 4,000 for math. Okay, about 4,000 years ago it came into being, but Abraham was the person who finally got everybody he knows, the tribe, to agree on worshiping the same God and having the same religion. Right now in the whole world, there are approximately 14 to 17 million such people. I mean, people who believe in this religion, and the number would be the 10th religion in the world. So it's not a small one and not one of the biggest. And this word called Judeo-Christian is the word that appeared in 19th century, even though both religions existed for more than 2,000 years. People finally decided that they were so similar, or they have some shared value and tradition, that they would like to coin this word so that people would realize that they were actually brothers. Now they're related to each other. And how come in 19th century? Because there's a lot of anti-Semitism since, I don't know since when, maybe since 5th century, but certainly since 15th century. So there's a lot of bad feelings between them and other people who feel that it is wrong to discriminate against Jewish people, which is called the anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism. People who discriminate against Jewish people, this kind of feeling or practice is called anti-Semitism, because they are a tribe, a kind of tribe, which is a Semite people. 中文我们叫闪米人, Semite. So if you have this feeling or action against the Jewish people, you have this anti-Semitism feeling, or you are such kind of an activist. But in the 19th century, people decided to invent this word, which is Judeo-Christian, so that it would point out to people these two probably hostile against each other religion were actually brothers, because they have they use a common Bible, and they have shared values and common practices. So it is actually two sides of a coin, you may say that. And one of the people who used this term was Nietzsche. Nietzsche. Nietzsche is not Jewish, he's German. Then in the United States during Cold War, people started to use this term Judeo-Christian. It is to let people know that even though the majority of the people are Christian, they should feel they have the same value system and tradition and heritage as the Jewish people. So they start to use this combination of two words as a way to be opposed to Russia, which is anti-religion. So they are atheist. Atheist. When Marx and Engels, Karl Marx, 马克思哈, and Engels, I forgot his first name. I used to know that. Anyway, Karl Marx and Engels, they wrote the Communist Manifesto. 就是共产党宣言的时候，all their followers would read that to understand their theory. And one of the theories is atheism. They don't believe in any religion. They think religion is a way it's an opium to make people numb, to make people feel better when they're being oppressed or suffering under the capitalist. So they believe if there's no religion, then everyone will be free, and the church will not be able to boss over the society, and the government could not hide behind the religion, and so on. So this is a thing, a Judeo-Christian word that was used very often during the Cold War time to say that we Americans are Christians and we are on this. We are allied with the Jewish people, and we together are against the communism. And here's another thing about the Abrahamic religion that we learned 2 slides ago. There are other religions that are also Abrahamic. So they follow Abraham, 就是亚伯拉罕哈。亚伯拉罕 is from the Old Testament, huh? And there are other religions in addition to Judaism and Christianity. Okay. In addition to those important religions, there are others, which are Baha'i, Islam, and Jews, and more. These religions also follows the Old Testament. Of them, of course, Islam is one of the biggest. They should really feel they were brothers with the Jewish people, because they were the offspring of Ishmael, while Ishmael was the son of Abraham, while Christian people believe in Abraham and his other son, Isaac. So they were all brothers, actually. So they really should be brothers, okay? So this is the second word in our vocabulary. Okay, let's be faster. This word is called epiphany. Epiphany is sudden revelation. You can say that things were covered before. Now it is right in front of everyone's eye. And in the Christian feast days, there is this kind of a holiday or festival day called Epiphany. It has different meanings. It is that Jesus Christ was revealed to the whole world as God incarnate, 是上帝投生出来的一个上帝哈。So Jesus Christ was a God, and how it was revealed to the world, there are different ways of defining what this day is. So in the Western Christianity, this day commemorates the visit of the Magi. If you know the story of Joseph and Maria giving birth to Jesus Christ in Bethlehem, down in the manger, Manger is 牛或者羊吃草的 a trough where people put grass or wheat or beans and food. Feed 是给动物吃的食物，叫做 feed 哈。So you put feed in the manger, which is a longish trough. Okay, you can put water in it, or you can put feed stock feet in it. That's a manger. And when Jesus Christ was born in the inn, there was no room available for the parents to stay. So he was put in the manger with the animals. You usually would see a picture with the horses, donkeys, or kettles or sheep, because he was born in a manger. And the day, usually a few days after Jesus was born, there came 3 wise men from the east. They followed the bright star, the star that God told them to follow in order to find Christ the Savior that would eventually save the whole world, or just the Jewish people. So these 3 people are called the wise man, or the Magi. Magi is probably the plural because there are 3 of them. You don't say one Magi. You say the Magi, which means 3 of such wise men. When they came to the manger, to Bethlehem, to the manger, and they were shown the baby, that is the time Jesus Christ was revealed to the world as the God. Okay, so many Christians would celebrate the day of Epiphany for that reason. However, this is in the West, and there are other people having different reasons for Epiphany. But in the East, they do not choose that day or that reason. They may choose the same day or not the same day, but their reason is to commemorate the baptism of Jesus in the Jordan River. When, I don't know exactly when Jesus was baptized. I would say if he died at age 33 or 34, it could be sometime between 30 and 33. Anyway, he as an adult went into Jordan River to be baptized by St. John the Baptist, Sheng Yuhan, who is his cousin, one of his cousins. And Jesus went into the river, and St. John put water on his head and the body and baptized. Baptized 就是受洗礼，就是 to bathe in the water in a ceremonial way, a religious way. Okay, if you were born a Christian, you may be baptized a couple days after that, and you may decide to do it again when you're a teenager or even much later, to show that you are quite sure you are a true believer. So this is called baptism, or baptized is the verb. And the traditional day for the feast of Epiphany is January 6th, or the Sunday after January 1st. However, there are other countries, for example, Ethiopia, they would do it on January 19th, as I showed you in one of the pictures that I took on January 19th. That was the day in Ethiopia they celebrate Epiphany. And during the celebration, of course, there are feasts. Every holidays in the world there would be feast, but in Eastern Christian churches, when they celebrate Epiphany, there is always a body of water, some kind of ritual, throwing water out of a pond or sprinkling, or people would go into the water and things like that, because they were celebrating the baptism of Jesus Christ by St. John the Baptist. Okay, the next word is just catastrophe. It is a little bit strange because you would pronounce it as catastrophe. This PHE is pronounced phi, which is rare in English. This means a huge, a big disaster. It is a calamity, catalysm, crash, devastation, or disaster. These are all words for disaster, but catastrophe is one of the worst. Very, very big, usually big earthquake or flood or typhoon or things like that. Huh? And next word is even easier. It's just edible. When something that people can eat, we say it is edible. This is the word, a sentence when we say, when we talk about narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder. When you have this disorder, you are not quite normal because you feel that you are greater than anyone else and you don't care about anyone else, and you want anyone else to admire you, to praise you, to think you're great. This is some kind of mental disease. 我们叫做自恋狂。In describing this thing, the writer used these words. One is grandiosity, which is a noun, which means very, very great, thinking you are the greatest of them all. If you think about an adjective, this feeling is a pompous or pretentious. They all have the similar meaning, but the pompous and the pretentious are adjectives, while grandiosity is a noun. And the second line is excessive need for admiration. A person who is narcissistic does not only think he is the greatest and he doesn't care about others. He wants everyone else to think the same. People should admire him and praise him and bow in front of him. I mentioned the person who clearly is narcissistic last time. And the third trait of this disorder is inability to empathize. To empathize 是有同情心 and inability 没有这个能力有同情心就是没有同情心。A person who is thinking of himself always, he doesn't care about other people when they're suffering or being hurt by him or by others. He doesn't care. So this kind of person is unable to empathize others. The next word is temperate climate. When you talk about temperate climate, you need to talk about other climates. Throughout the whole globe, there are tropical, subtropical, and polar climate zones. So we have the map like this. The very center, kind of orangish colored belt, is the tropical zone, tropics. Okay, here we have this word indicating this zone, which is that is equator, 就是赤道. So you have above and below tropics, the tropical zone, this area between the two lines. And what are these two lines? Okay, it's actually this line and this line. We have Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. 这个我们中文叫做北回归线 Tropic of Cancer 北回归线 while Tropic of Capricorn 是南回归线 If you're into astrology or horoscope, you know that Cancer and Capricorn are two of the 12 signs. 我们有什么金牛座、双子星座什么的整整 There were 12 of those that we talked about before. But of them, two, one is called Cancer, one is called Capricorn. And I'm sure they are the two of the 12 that faces each other. They're on the different sides, okay? So here you have this polar Arctic Circle, 这就是 北极圈. In the old times, they want to divide the area between equator and the poles equally into 90 parts, 所以就有90度的北纬跟南纬. However, they did not do it right. So instead of ending 90 degrees at the North and the South Pole, they ended up here in the Arctic Circle. So this is an area that has no latitude, 没有这个纬度，也不是北纬，也不是南纬, because 90 degrees stopped right here. But the Earth goes on. So you have the Arctic circles, this one and this one, and you have the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, and you have the equator, which is a all these lines divided the Earth into temperate zone, polar zone, and tropics. You have anything between the Capricorn. Let me see, tropical and of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Okay, they're right here. These two lines are 回归线, okay? And we talk about these different zones. The temperate means 温带, so it's a mild weather. It's not too hot and not too cold. And in meteorology 就是气象学, precipitation 就是它的降雨量. It can mean rain or probably dew. No, it doesn't include dew. Okay, it includes drizzling 就是小雨, rain 比较大的雨, sleet 是小的雪片, 小冰块, snow 是雪片了,雪, ice pellet is 像冰雹这样比较大一点的 bigger ice chips, and the snow pellets, these are all different kinds of precipitation, and the largest would be hail, 就是冰雹了, So all these are a form of precipitation. They fall from the sky because the humidity in the air condensed into water droplets. The water vapor in the air, atmosphere, 就是空气里的水汽, condense 就是凝结了, condense into and for because of the gravity or gravitational pull, they were pulled down from the clouds and become precipitation. So this is the word precipitation that includes all these things that fall from the sky. This is when we talked about the name for the state of California. It came from the word caliph and the caliphate. However, for some reason, they translated into Chinese as Halifa and the Halifa Guo. So this caliph or caliphate was probably pronounced close to Halifate, Halif or Halifate. That's why it was translated this way. I have great trust in the Chinese ancient or old-time translation. They really follow the pronunciation very closely. For example, Buddha was translated into 佛祖 because it's a sound that's between B and V or F. So it's translated as 佛祖, 佛经. While in English, it's Buddhism or Buddha. So for the same reason, this word is probably pronounced as Halif or something similar to that. So a caliph is a leader of a country who are entirely made of Muslims. So their laws are Sharia laws because they all obey the Sharia laws. And the ruler would also be a military leader. He would lead the soldiers to conquer other states, whether they are or not Islamic states, and make them into Islamic states. So this is a tradition since Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, who founded the Islamic religion, to be militarily oriented and with no separation of church and state. So it's as an Islamic state ruled administratively by that ruler who is also the military and the religious leader. And after he died, there were many after him who also became the leader of the ever-growing empire. The country became bigger and bigger. So they went out of their boundary to annex other countries and to form a bigger empire. So it is their tradition. So when communism came around, they want all the workers of the world to unite, and that scared the hell out of the Western European countries, because in their mind, each country is a country, and the religion is there, but it does not interfere with the military or the administration of the country. But now comes a communist country that they want to all the communist parties in the world to unite into one big empire. That really scared the Western people the hell out of them. Yeah. So, and there is such an example before the communist idea that a country can go beyond their border because of their belief. So after Muhammad, there are other leaders who serially, that is, one after another, became the caliph and expanded their caliphate bigger and bigger and bigger. As the color shows, it was this under Muhammad, that is darkest color here, and the next one after him. This is all in a matter of years, very few years. Muhammad in 10 years got to be this big, and the one after him became this big in 30 years. And then there's another one which go as far as Iberia, that is Spain and Portugal. So these were originally Christian countries, and they conquered them and converted them, forced them to become Muslims. So this is a tradition that a leader who is a caliph would rule a country that is huge beyond borders. Okay, and this country would be called a caliphate. So it's no longer the country of Arabia or Iran or what's that? Algeria, Morocco. These no longer matters because many of them were Muslim countries, but they were conquered by the bigger Muslim country, which is the caliphate. So it went on and on. There were many others. We don't have to know how many and how they changed. But in the year 1517, the fourth major caliphate is the Ottoman Caliphate, 就是土耳其帝国的this ruler who ruled over Ottoman Empire. It's also called another name, Osman. Okay, Osman. Yeah. I don't know exactly the difference. I mean, there's no difference, but there are two different names. So Ottoman Empire became the caliphal authority from 1517. That's after it occupied the entire Turkey and more. So there were others who, for example, there's the Mamluk occupied part of Egypt, and this Ayyubid Caliphate. There are all different kinds. So it may not be one big caliphate, but there were localized smaller ones. Well, that's it. Here's the map of Ottoman Empire. Sometime after it became the caliphate, and it conquered Greece and the Balkan states and part of the southern states of the Russian Empire, because there was no Russian Empire. I don't remember the exact date, but Peter the Great decided to move the capital from Moscow to St. Petersburg in the year around 1707 or something, in the very beginning of 1700. So that's after this. So at that time, there was no Russian Empire. When Ottoman Empire was described in this map, there was no Russian Empire. Russian was a much later upstart. And here is a current, one of the current caliphate. It is Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. And as you know, there were states called ISIS or IC, I don't know, Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. That's ISIS. And it is broken up quite recently, but this is a map of Islamic State of Iraq and Levant. Levant is a French name for Middle East, and Iraq is this part, okay? Iraq is the old Mesopotamia, 两河流域, and the next country to the east, the bigger country, is Iraq, is Iran, okay? So this is from 2014 to now. So there are still caliphates in the world, but of course, California is not one of them. They were just named after a woman who was the ruler of a caliphate, but that was in the 1500s. She was fictional. She was not real, and the story was long ago, not right now. And now we have 4 or 5 words. One is entwine. These words all came from the song that we studied last week. Entwine is like 菟丝花, a vine that entwined over another plant. So this is Thomas More used these words to describe this relationship between a man and a woman, to convince his wife that they are so bound together, and not because of her beauty. He loved her when she's beautiful, and he would always love her when she's no longer beautiful. So he used the words entwine, which is a metaphoric word botanically, to say a plant, a vine, entwine another plant or something. And the verdant is also used to describe a young woman by comparing her to a fresh green vegetation, whatever kind. The verdant is a beautiful word that is used to describe springtime or very green vegetation. And heyday is a word meaning at the top of the time period. A person at the peak of his power is his heyday. And here is exactly part of the lyrics of that song is fervor and faith. Here I particularly put them both out here, even though faith is probably not a new word for anyone here, but further could be. Further is your passion, and the faith is your trust and your honest feeling. In this song, he said, the fervor and the faith of a soul can be known. And when you read that, the word fervor and the faith both started with the letter F. That gives you such a resonant feeling that is called alliteration. 这个叫做头韵法. When we rhyme in a poem, we usually look at the end of the line and the end part of the vowel and how it's, well, in the English rhyming, it's more limited than Chinese because there are very few vowels you could rhyme, but Chinese have a lot of different, I wouldn't say vowels, but non-initials that can rhyme, like you can have yang, jiang, kang, all these words rhymed with the ending. Okay, we call that ending, A-N-G, ending. So that's a normal kind of rhyming. However, on the opposite side of a word or sentence, you have the beginning, which is called the initial. When you first pronounce the word, in Chinese, you have an initial and an ending. For example, you have, say, tou, you have T and O, and that together comes to be a word tou. And the initial is T, and you could rhyme, which is tou yun. Tou yun is to rhyme with the initial. So fervor and the faith rhymes with this first letter. So that's called alliteration. So that is an English word. It's about English poems, but it also applies to Chinese. In English, you would say fervor and faith. However, in Chinese, there are other ways to rhyme with the initial. Here we have some examples. This is English. You can say humble house, which usually we don't consider them as rhyming, but they do rhyme in the beginning. Or potential power play. The three words all started with P. So this kind of rhyming is called alliteration, 头韵法, okay? And the very famous example is a tongue twister. A tongue twister is a 绕口令, tongue 是你的舌头, twist your tongue. And this one is called Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled pepper. Almost every single word of them started with the letter P. So it is really a 绕口令. It twists your tongue. Here's the first part of this thing. Peter Piper picked a peck. I'm sorry. I don't know how come. There should be a peck, be a C. A peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled pepper. Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, how many pickled peppers did Peter Piper pick? Okay, you can have fun by Googling part of the sentence and find it and practice yourself. There are many Chinese tongue twisters too. Many, or maybe not all of them, are alliterations. Here, it's just for children to practice their pronunciation. So there's no hard word in this, except for us. We rarely encounter this word peck. A peck can be, for example, a chicken eating food from the ground. They would peck the food. You know, this is the action of chicken's head. But here, a peck of pepper is a bag of pepper. And how big is the peck? It is 2 dry gallons or 8 dry quarts. So it's like 2 of this bag in this picture. So if you go pick blueberries, you probably get a bag like this or a bucket. When you pick blueberries in a bucket, you would eventually pour them into a bag like this and take it home. And the owner of the orchard would charge you, for example, $10 for a half peck. I think that's how much we paid last time. So that's a peck, okay? Another more common word is bushel. Bushel is used much more common than peck as a unit of dry volume. So it's not for liquid, but it's for dry stuff. And a bushel is 4 packs or 8 dry gallons. Usually we say gallon is not a dry unit, but a liquid. We say gasoline or apple juice or milk. They were counted as gallons because they are liquid. But when we count things, usually in the farm, they were not counted using gallon, because when we talk about wheat or soybean or apples or blueberries, we use bushels. Bushel is a volume. And you can convert that to its weight. For oat, it's 32 pounds. Barley is 48 pounds. And the reason is barley, because of the shape, oat is bigger, so there's more air in between them, while barley is closer together, so they weigh more in a bushel. And if you have corn all shelled, individual kernels of corn containing 15.5% of moisture by weight, this bushel of corn weighs 56 pounds. The moisture in the cereal also affects the weight of the bushel. For example, wheat at 13.5% moisture weighs about 60 pounds. But if it has more moisture or less, then the weight would be different, because each kernel would be bigger or smaller depending on the moisture. But we're more familiar with the liquid measurement. When we make rice or make cake or other desserts, we need to have a measuring cup, which you can see this measuring cup. Even though it's by volume, on the left hand side you have that volume. Yes, but you can also have one that tells you the weight of the water or the flour or something different. So this is a liquid one. You have 1 cup, half cup, a third of a cup, or a quarter of a cup. This kind of cup we are very familiar with. When we say a cup, it is about the same volume as our Chinese rice bowl. However, the Chinese rice bowl is not standardized. They could have different volume. The next word is the Bobby Soxer. It is when we talk about who was it? Nelson Eddy. He crossover from opera into popular music fields, and so he appeals to both shrieking Bobby Soxers and opera purists. These are two very different music lovers. A Bobby Soxer, a Bobby Sox is a short socks versus a long stockings. Here I have a picture of this movie called The Bachelor and the Bobby Soxer. I wonder if you recognize Cary Grant, who is probably the most recognizable person in this picture. And he's a man on the right. And on the left, you have Myrna Loy. And in the middle, the Bobby Soxer is Shirley Temple. You probably have seen Shirley Temple when she was a kid, like 6 or 8 years old. But this is when she was a teenager, and she was infatuated with the sister's boyfriend. Okay, so this is a story about a bachelor and the Bobby Soxer. And these are the Bobby Soxers, young girls, even before 20. So I like to call them young girls, but the teenagers. They could be anywhere between 13 and 19, but sometimes people call them even after they turn 20. So this is a style of the socks. They are short. They may or may not be turned over at the top, which is here. So the top may be folded over. You can see there almost all of them fold the top over. And they are usually white, but they can be in other colors. For example, this one is not white. Ankle length, it is the length is to the ankle, just above the ankle. Ankle 是脚踝 instead of at a full extension up the leg. So if you are a mature woman, at least in those days, in the 50s, you would wear stockings, which is almost transparent. Long silk stockings that goes all the way up your thigh, up to your thigh, or even up. It became panties. In the early days, there were no pantyhoses. It was not invented. So they were only stockings, but later there were pantyhoses. It's a combination of panty and hose. When we talk about this, we talk about Irish poet who Thomas More was. And I mentioned Byron. Byron's paper, we say Byron's memoir or archive, was trusted to Thomas More, who lost it. So people blame him very much for having lost Lord Byron's archive. However, he really could not help it because Lord Byron's wife insists on getting it back and burn the whole thing. So it was burned, and to the lament of every literary fan, his thoughts were lost forever because he had the journals, which is a diary, and he recorded his every affairs in it. And now we don't know who they are. Okay. That has a very short life because he died of a fever while he was campaigning for Greek. He was fighting for Greece in their independence war against the Ottoman Empire. How we just talked about Ottoman Empire. Ottoman Empire, in that previous map we saw, that's greenish in color. They conquered Greece for a number of years, but eventually Greece became independent. And during that time, the entire Western Europe was egging for Greece. People like Byron, I just said egg, 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 you bring an egg to protest something. Sometimes you throw an egg, but you're egging somebody onward. That means you support his cause or you even support his actions. So Byron went to fight for Greece, and he was adored by the Greek people as one of their independence heroes. And he died during the battle of a fever. So he was 30 something. Let me see, 12, 36, around 36. And he was one of the three greatest English romantic poets. We have Byron, Shelley, and Keats. They all died very young. Byron died at 36, but the other two are even younger. You have Shelley, who died in 30, at age 30, and Keats, not even 30. They all have their different stories. They're different background. For example, Byron is an autocracy. It's very rich and pampered and has lots of money. And Shelley also had lots of money, but Keats was dirt poor. Very, very poor boy. Gee, I probably should take a medicine, and then I would not be able to talk. This is one of the reasons I really should try to make it shorter, because my throat is getting worse. Okay. Now, let's get on to the next one. Byron was a peer, which means he was one of the aristocrats. 就是一个贵族哈。Okay, and he was famous for Dong Here, Dong is a womanizer living in Spain. Tang Huang, huh? And the Child Herald's pilgrimage. That was his breakout poem. One day he published that Child Herald's pilgrimage. The second day, the entire Europe become his fans because they just adored this one. Made him overnight sensation. And other poems. But he is a womanizer, as I mentioned. These things I talked about too. Yeah. And here, there's a statue of him in Borghese, Villa Borghese in Rome. My sister Annie told me when you go to Rome, you have to go to Villa Borghese. That's why I followed her advice and made online reservation to go through the museum, which has very limited visitors. You would reserve a place, only 100% people would be allowed during that 1 hour or two to visit that place. So you do have to have online reservation in order to get there. And Byron stayed in many parts of Italy for many years. And right under this statue of Byron in Villa Borghese, I took a picture of a plaque right here under him that says, where was it? Okay, it says, Lord Byron, Child Herald's pilgrimage, because they adore that poem so deeply. That is a quite long poem about people of his generation. They suffered through the Napoleon War, and they were exhausted, and many of them died, and they had no will to great deeds. And many people feel just what he feels. That's why they loved that poem. However, he's a different kind of person than Shelley or Keats, because he's a big womanizer. We say womanizer is a man who likes to consort or play around with mistresses, and he had dozens and dozens of them, and you cannot count on one hand or two, more than 10. These are just some of them, and he openly became their having affairs with these people. Many of them were married. This most famous of them was Lady Caroline Lamb. This is a pretty lady who died a few years after him. So she's the wife of this guy, Lord Melbourne. Lord Melbourne had this wife who became Lord Byron's mistress, and everybody knows about it. But after the wife died, Lord Melbourne became the Prime Minister of Queen Victoria. So Queen Victoria was the queen from 1837 to 1901, while Lord Melbourne was Prime Minister for Queen Victoria. Very, very important Prime Minister, because Queen Victoria became the queen at age 18 and she knew nothing. And Lord Melbourne had to help her in every way. And he did it very, very well. So we say stories that appear in Lord Byron's archive or memoir, they were racy, racy 就是很里面充满了他的风流的事。So the publisher thinks that they are very crude and rude and bawdy and scandalous and indecent. So the publisher refused to publish it, even though he bought it from Thomas More. And eventually, when he decided not to publish, Thomas More asked to buy it back. However, the right is no longer, the decision is not his. So the publisher decided to sell to Byron's wife, who burned it. So these are all the words to describe how bad character-wise the low morality of Lord Byron, if you are into such a strict Victorian morality standard. Okay, so he's a womanizer. He womanizes women, of course, and he had affairs. Affairs is usually illicit. If you are a boy and a girl who liked each other, you could have a love affair, but it's not called affair. This is usually illicit. You do it illegally because one or both parties have a spouse. Here we come to the very last one word, which is parasite. And the parasite becomes parasitic, which is an adjective. And this relationship between two species is called the symbiotic 互生哈. They rely on each other, or they live together. However, they may not be equally good to the others, to the other part. For example, you could have a roundworm or a tapeworm, which we would call 蛔虫或者是绦虫哈. And this worm would be in your body, in your intestine, and they live on you. They don't go out hunting or foraging for food. They just eat whatever you eat. So they rely on you, and they are not good for our health. So this symbiotic relationship is not beneficial to both parties. They may cause us harm. On the other hand, when we say, what was the thing? 菟丝花哈, 菟丝花, 菟丝 on 女萝 or on the pine tree or on whatever tree, they do not have roots anymore, and they would suck the nutrient from the plant that is the host. So they are harmful to the host. On the other hand, I heard that mistletoe is not damaging the host. It's just attached to it, and you can see it there, but it does its own thing. It has green leaves. It manufactures. They have chlorophyll, 就是叶绿素哈. They would make their own food. So that is a different kind of a symbiotic relationship. Okay, so let's start with the song. I gave you 3 links, but I'm going to play the second one. If you want a better resolution, you would watch the first one, which is the official one. Has a much better resolution, even though it's not excellent. It's only 480. Right now, we have 1080 or something like that. So if you want better resolution, you go to the first one. If you want to see who the lyrics, the important thing is the lyrics. If you want to see the lyrics, it's in the second one. And also each singer's name, each one who did the tiny little part of solo has a name on it. So you would see, oh, that's Bob Dylan, or that's Billy what? Billy, I
Joe.
forgot. Billy Joel, yes, Joel, yes, Billy Joel, or Bruce Springsteen, or they're black ones like. Anyway, you will see them all if you're interested, which I am. So I will play the second one, and the third one is after 20 years there was an earthquake in Haiti, and a group of singers and musicians came together to sing the same song with a little bit changes, and they raised funds to help with the help Haiti to weather through the devastating catastrophe. So I have this song, but I'm not going to play it. I'm going to the second song, which I successfully downloaded. Sorry.
There comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying. Oh, when it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all. We can't go on pretending day by day that somewhere will soon make a change. We all a part of God's great big family, and the truth, love is all we need. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we make a better day. Just
Uh, I hope that many of you have heard of this song. I certainly heard a lot. I remember exactly when, I don't know how it came to me. Okay, so these words are quite simple. I should start with the background somewhat. It's because of a famine in Ethiopia. Many people died, and Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie, they together wrote this song. Mm, But because Harry Belafonte was the first to suggest that they should do one, if they all big stars would put it together, it could be a very sellable song that could raise a lot of money. So they were the two of them, Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie, worked on it, and it's a great music. I being a Chinese, I must say that it's very foreign to my background. This kind of black rhythm and melody is, I would say, no Chinese could write a song like this, but it is great nonetheless. It's very exciting and it moves you. And it has this feeling that we're all in this together and we want to do something good. Uh, this atmosphere is really, really contagious. And I just love it. You should know that even though everything is quite simple, there is one word here. We will make a better day. And in that video you just saw, almost every time it says well, W-E-L-L. So that is a big mistake every time it appears. Let's just read it quickly. There comes a time when we heed a certain call. Heed is to pay attention to, listen to a certain call when the world must come together as one. It seems to say that this job is so big that we have to all help each other to make this happen. And they did. There are people dying, and it's time to lend a hand to life. To lend a hand 就是伸出手来帮助他的意思哈。Life, then it used the next line to describe what is life. Life is the greatest gift of all. If people are dying so senselessly, we must give them the greatest gift of all, which is life, so that people will live through these difficult times. We can't go on pretending day by day that someone somewhere soon make a change. We're all a part of God's great big family. And the truth, love is all we need. It's not too hard. We only need to love others. Don't wait for others to do it, because this thing, we have to do it and we can do it. We are the world, which is repeated many, many times in this song. We are the world, we are the children, we are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. This is a very good point in this song. It's not that we are up here and they are down there and we're trying to help them. No, we're all in this together. They are us and we are them. And we're trying to save our own lives because they are part of our world. It's true, we'll make a better day, just you and me. And this is another selling point. Just you and me. We don't need millions of people. Just you and me, the two of us can do this. And this you means everyone, okay? And send them your heart so they know that someone cares, and their lives will be stronger and free, as God has shown us by turning stones to bread. And so we all must lend a helping hand. Actually, Jesus did the turn stones to bread and the fish multiplied to feed thousands of people. If we just do it together, we can create the same miracle. These are all the same things. Yeah, I guess that's the same. When you're down and out, there seems no hope at all. But if you just believe, there's no way we can fall. Just believe. If you just believe, 然后下面是另外 the next, the words after believe is another sentence. There's no way we can fall. Well, let us realize that a change can only come when we stand together as one. We need to stand together. Okay, so that's the song, which is pretty long, I would say. By the way, the one who's conducting, he was doing this, and that was Quincy Jones. The black conductor. He's a great musical personality. He produces and accompany and write music. He does a lot of things. I think he's still around and doing some of the great things that he always did. This is about the African famine. Famine 就是一个大的饥荒。Here we have famine. Wreaking havoc is 捣乱，造成大伤害。The wreaking havoc. It can be something great like earthquake or a storm or something, but it could also be one little boy. He could wreak havoc. That's how this word can be used, even is for an individual. It becomes a charity single. That is, it's not an album. Usually a singer would publish an album with a selection of songs, but this is a single and it's for charity. And it was written it's a joint effort by Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie. And this is the cover of this jacket of this vinyl record with lots of names on it. It becomes a worldwide phenomenon. Phenomenon can started out as a natural phenomenon, which could be like an earthquake or something, but then it can apply to people's behavior or happening that caused by people. And it's phenomenal means it's very, very great. So they did make a lot of money. The charity made a lot of money to help the people. And that charity agency, organization is still existing. And that agency is called Africa, USA for Africa, okay? And they garnered a lot of awards, and this one is a Grammy award. So it looks like a 唱机, record player, but they also got many other awards. This one is Grammy, and that's Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie. It also sold millions and millions, so they got certified as platinum. Platinum would be, I don't know, 白金,
白金.
Yeah, you have a gold record when you reach a certain sale number, and the next level would be platinum. And they reached multiple platinum status, and they were certified, a quadruple platinum certification, okay? So platinum would mean 1 million, I think, because in the beginning they sold 3.8 or some millions, but then year after year it becomes 20 million. So they won a Grammy Award, American Music Award, People's Choice Award. These are all the wonderful things. You just feel this camaraderie we are all in this together. And when they sing, they just love each other and they love the whole world. And then 25 years, they did it again. I mean, different people. I am not a big fan of sequels, so I didn't watch it too much, but I did see Barbara Streisand there. Okay. This is just a feeling that people have for the less fortunate. We want to help others. So the people in America who are supposed to be very wealthy, they should not think it's not their job to help others. We are all in this together. And this is a Du Fu's poem that says the same thing. It's also kind of a long poem, and many of them are not necessarily easy to remember, but there are lines that are just so famous that many people can recite those few lines. And this is a narrative poem about his life when a storm came in the 8th month. When we see 8, 8月, we would just translate it into the 8th month because it's not August. It's usually sometime in mid-September. When the wind was howling angrily, and it took off 3 layers of straw on my roof. I should read it probably. 8月秋高风怒号，卷我屋上3重茅。Here we have 毫 and 茅, they rhyme. And then there's a 唐敖, and that's about it. Okay. 毛飞渡江洒江郊. So this straw on my roof were taken away, borne on the wind. The fierce wind took it across the river. Usually when we say the river, this river, Jiang, we usually mean Changjiang or Yangtze River, but not here because he's pretty far away from Yangtze Jiang. He lives in Huanhua Xi, okay, that's where you wash the flower petals. And that was a tiny brook. Xi we would translate into a brook. However, this doesn't go into Changjiang. It's pretty far. It goes to Chengdu and then joins Jinjiang, which then goes down south and eventually join Yangtze River. So here when we say Jiang, it's just a tiny brook. So the straw flew across the brook and were scattered in the neighboring area. When we say jiao, it could mean suburb or the neighborhood. 高者挂绢长林梢，下者飘转沉塘坳. Some flew very high and hang on the top of the tree branches. Some flew low and sank in the pond or some caved in area, not necessarily with water. 南村群童欺我老无力. Here you suddenly came to a sentence which is much longer than the previous ones. So he was writing a 7 words poem, but now it becomes 9, and it becomes a various length. So this is definitely not a modern style, the Tang Dynasty poem. It is, we would call a 古诗和古体诗. He says, people, children, boys, children in the south village, south of my place, they take advantage of my old age and my lack of strength. So right in front of my face, they are stealing things away from me. How dare they do that? How cruel of them. They just publicly took my straw roof into the bamboo bushes. 公然抱茅入竹去，唇焦口燥，呼不得归来倚杖自叹息。So he being old and very weak, he could not get the boys to return those things to him, even though his lips were dried up, were parched, dry, burnt. Lips were burned and mouth was dried up. And he called and called, and he could not get anything happen. So he returned to his home, leaning on his walking stick, and sighed to himself. This is the second part. I just randomly put it on to two different slides. There's no formal break in the middle of that poem. 俄顷风定云墨色，秋天漠漠向昏鹤。步秦多年，冷似铁，娇儿恶卧踏里裂。This is saying that immediately, quickly, in a few moments, the wind steadied down or stabilized, and the cloud got even darker. And it was in autumn time. We already knew that in the first line. More is blurred because there was rain and the wind, so things were kind of blurred and in confusion. And it's getting darker because the clouds are darker and the day is further down into the evening. So it's kind of confusion in black. And he was wearing this cotton clothing or gown, which is old, many years old, and it was cold like iron. So it's not soft and fluffy and warm. And his child, his son or children were in the same bed, probably. They don't have too many rooms, and the children were not behaving well in their sleep. So they kicked the cover, and they even slipped it open. So the covering or the comforter was kicked, broken by his sons or children who did not behave well during the sleep. And the 床头屋漏无干处，雨脚如麻未断绝. So I said it's a narrative poem because he was describing everything one after another. In these two lines, first he says, at the head of his bed, the leak of the roof causing everything to be wet. I could not find any spot that's dry. And at the foot of the bed, the leaked rain just came down without any interruption. So it continuously, the rainwater was dripping down. 自今丧乱少睡眠，长夜沾湿何由彻。Ever since I was met with such chaotic warfare and being a refugee, evacuating from different places, I had very little sleep, and the night is so long and wet. How am I to get through the night? So the next two lines are the most famous of all. 安得广厦千万间，大庇天下寒士俱欢颜. How I wish and I hope that there is a way to make this happen. Make what happen? We would have bright, wide buildings in thousands or 10,000s with so many rooms that we could house all the poor people who are suffering, and they could enjoy some happy times to have smile on their faces. 风雨不动安如山, they could be housed in this huge building that I imagine that would be so firmly steady during a storm, as if they were mountains. 呜呼，何时眼前突兀现此屋? I just wish that such kind of building would appear. When you say 现 means appear instead of being seen or I saw. It says a house, a building like this would suddenly appear in front of my eyes. Then even if I don't have a place to stay, or even I still live in a broken house, or I freeze to death, I would still be happy. I will be contented. Content is the word 足. I will be content in the broken hut, freezing to death, if such a building can suddenly appear to help all the people in the world. This is his feeling after this very frustrating night and storm. He wished that there would be help for everyone else, even if not for himself. Du Fu is a poet that writes everything he saw, which is misery upon misery. He lived through lots of sad times and saw a lot of people who are suffering even more than he did during the civil wars, I would say, or I can call it a civil war. And he wrote it so much and so well and with so much feeling that he passed down to us a great record of what it was like during that time. We know that Li Bo, who is probably an even more famous poet during his time. He was about 10 years older or 11 years older than Du Fu, and they were good friends. However, in Levi's world, he saw nothing but happiness or drinking or enjoying life, except for very few things. Yeah, he talked about his being banished to Yelang, which is Guizhou. Except for a few things, he is totally in a different world than Du Fu. Of course, it's because he was 10 years older. It was a more peaceful and happy time. But many people, I'm sure, love Li Bai's poems much more than they do Du Fu's poem. However, we consider him the greatest poet in Chinese history because he suffers and he let others understand how people suffer. He almost starved to death, actually. He starved for a long time, then somebody gave him some food and he ate it too quickly, and as a result, he died. And he starved many times, especially his children, wife and children. Actually, at least one of his children died of starvation right in front of his eyes. And sometimes the family was separated and he was just suffering and suffering. And we say that Chinese people are much older than other people because they knew suffering for thousands of years. They read about the suffering, and partly because of Du Fu, who told them about how people suffered when times are rough. Yeah, you tell an American person how when he was very unhappy about something, for example, he could buy a certain game machine. That's no suffering at all. Okay, they know nothing about suffering. This poem was written in 761, and 2 years ago he left his official position and went as a refugee to Gansu and then to Sichuan. So in a year he came to Sichuan, and his friend gave him a place where he could settle down with his family, with a few huts that's, with straw roof, that are not really good looking structures. But for once he has a place to stay. And when 760, in the year 761, there was a storm and did some damage to his roofs, and then came the rain. And the Civil War is still ongoing. And he thought about all these terrible suffering and experience, and he wrote this. And the point that he had is he hopes that all the other suffering people would be able to have a place to rest, to stay. So he is called a realist poet, or poet who are writing realism, 这现实主义的诗人哈。And lots of his poems about how people were drafted at a young age or at an old age, and leaving behind wife and children, separate from one another, and things like that. He came from a rich family. However, he himself was not wealthy at all. His grandfather was a very important official, very high official, but he only reached Gongbu, Yuan Wai Lang, so he's usually nicknamed the Du Gongbu because he was in the position of Gongbu, which is nothing compared to his grandfather. He was also called the Du Shaoling, which Shaoling is a place he used to live, and the Du Caotang because he got this Caotang, which is a straw hut right by the brook, which is Huanhua Xi. And these are all his names. Chinese literary persons love to have all kinds of nicknames, or to give others nicknames. I did not realize, we grew up thinking Du Fu was one of the greatest and most famous poets in Chinese history, but he was not when he was alive. And even after he was dead, people in his same dynasty, that is Tang Dynasty, they made anthology of poetries, and only one of them, collected by, I don't know, Wei Zhuangba, yeah, I guess. But only one collection included 7 of his poems. All others, dozens of them, did not collect his poems because he was not famous. But however, when Song Dynasty came, lots of people adored him and respected him and praised him, including people like Su Shi or Zhu Xi. Lots of Song Dynasty famous people, they praised him so much that he became the #1 respected poet in Chinese history. And he is called the poetry saint, or saint poet, while Li Bai is called the immortal poet. He's like a fairy. He was always enjoying his life, while Li Du is always, Du Fu is always suffering. So his poems are called Shuchu, which means using poetry to record history. So instead of writing history, he writes poems so that people would know what happened.苏轼 loved him, 说杜子美是格力天纵，焉有汉魏晋宋以来风流。So he really occupies the supreme high position in this country. And there's a person called Jin Shengtan. Jin Shengtan is in Qing Dynasty. Qing Dynasty started in 1644. So his last 20 years was in Qing Dynasty. He is someone who loves all kinds of literary works, and he chose 6 of them as the best of the best literary works in Chinese history. And these are 庄子、离骚、史记、杜诗、水浒传, and the 西厢记. There's a great variance, such a variety of different works, like 史记 and this is very serious, and the huge volumes and the volumes of historian works by Sima Qian. And the Zhuangzi is a very light-hearted philosophical treaty, a collection of his treatises. And the 2 below him were even of lesser status, because 水浒传 is a novel written in vernacular language, so it is considered by almost all Chinese literary person as below them. But Jin Shengtan praised Shi Nai'an. Actually, later now we consider 水浒传 written by what's the other guy who wrote 三国演义? I tend to think he's Zheng something, but he's not. If you cannot help me, I have to get on my okay. We have 三国演义. Okay. Oh my, I hate this. I have very bad Chinese input. Romance of 3 Kingdoms. Okay, we have, how do you say that?
罗贯中.
That's right. Yes, 罗贯中. Okay, I just got it. Okay, 罗贯中. Nowadays, according to their research, 罗贯中 actually wrote 水浒传, and of course they have lots of proof for it, but we don't have to know that. Shi Nai'an is a contemporary novelist, and anyway, 水浒传 is not written by one person. It's written by many people, passed down as 说书. Someone would be in the theater talking about a part of the story in the theater setting or a bar setting. And over tens of or hundreds of years, these snippets of stories were collected into one, and the Shi Nai'an or Luo Guanzhong would put them all together and create one big novel. That's not necessarily, not entirely their work. It is mostly the great work of many other people who remain nameless, or some of them remain famous. There was a Ming Dynasty prince. He wrote several theater plays with Li Kui as the main character. So these were all before Shenai and Luo Guanzhong, but the Shui Hu Zhuan is their collective work, and the Xixiangji is, there were actually several of Xixiangji, but this one by Wang Shifu is the most famous, or favored by Jin Zhengtan. Jin Zhengtan is of course a famous literary person and an official, but he was executed, as many people were when you were working for an emperor. Then the emperor was not happy. Okay, so Du Fu, the poems by Du Fu, he uses the language of the people to write about the suffering of the people. That is a wonderful thing. We should all thank him for this great heritage that he preserved. And I have a few pictures of thatched roof buildings that were just beautiful, beautiful. When we think of Mao Wu, we think about dilapidated how hut like this one, which is in Ethiopia. So when we go to the well, right now probably we don't see any thatched roof buildings in China or in Taiwan. But when we were little, we did see some. They look like this. This is just a poorly constructed, cheap housing form. So in poor countries, you still have thatched roof, which is used because it's cheap, okay, not because it's good or great or beautiful. But in the richer countries, like this one is Shakespeare's wife's home, they, because of the huge amount of people coming in as tourists, they kept this roof in such excellent shape. So they have special people who could build thatched roof in top shape condition like this. They were paid big bucks nowadays to make such beautiful thatched roof houses. And like this one in Japan, and this one in progress, being made in Germany. Yes, I've seen many excellent hut with straw roofs in these countries. But in our mind, it was, in Du Fu's mind, it was like that. Okay? That is all for today, I'm sure. Sorry, gets to be so long. Okay, anyone has anything to say? If you want to say anything, you can write an email to me, and I have my email listed at the top of the slideshow and the top of the handout, which you get every week. And if you really want to have a line group, you tell me, and I can see how many people want to have a line group. Okay. Anybody wants to say anything?